the draft, with our most valuable asset isn't about, hey, just trade it away or trade it. It's maximizing the asset, and that can at different times take different forms. It can be selecting a player, it could be trading it for a veteran, it could be trading down, it could be trading up, and so we will continue to work through all those possibilities. Up until really we get on the clock on Thursday night. So, but I'd say Mary Kay, we're working through a number of different scenarios at this point.
As you kind of play out the scenarios, is this as obviously everybody seems to knows who's going number one, but 2 through 5, is it as uncertain maybe in terms of who could go where as you've seen in a while?
I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the case, Chris, and more from the perspective that I think at times there's an assumption externally that we know where players are going to go, and I think oftentimes that's not the case. Look, I'm not in the buildings of the teams that are picking 1 through 5. None of us are, and so I think to assume that in any year that the way it's going, again, besides obviously perhaps Mendoza, I think that's maybe a dangerous mindset to have.
Andrew, going back to the trade down idea, is it the approach different this year because it's 6 instead of 2? I know you had the talks ahead of the draft last year with the Jaguars. Do you have to wait, or the other team have to wait to see what happens 1 through 5 before you could pull off that trade?
I love how everybody last year thought we weren't trading down, and everybody this year assumes we are. I'd say this: every year is unique because the players change, your pick location change, demand may change. So, the general answer to your question is yes, the dynamics are different. But even if we were picking 2 again this year, I'd give you the same answer.
Had that meant so many guys in the draft that became either day one contributors or early season, full season contributors. Did that shift kind of how you guys approached this draft, knowing that you guys hit on so many guys? To do that again, obviously development is a possibility for any guy that you draft, but you want them to be day one contributors. So does that change your mindset?
I think probably the change was when we made our strategic pivot to get younger, right? At that point, you're going to make sure that younger players have the opportunity to kind of play their way into development. And I think kind of where we are now, I think it'll be a similar mindset. That maybe changes a little bit as we have a more veteran and established team. But we obviously want to give guys runway to grow and develop.
Simpson to go in the first round, and how do you guys kind of feel about Ty after your thorough evaluation?
Great question. I wouldn't comment on the first part of it, but in terms of the second part of it, we've enjoyed the time that we've spent with Ty. Son of a coach, really smart, very driven. He's physically talented. He has a very unique college journey. In terms of coming in as a 5-star and then really having to wait his turn behind 2 pretty talented quarterbacks in Bryce Young and Jalen Milroe before getting his chance under center, and he did a great job maximizing it. So we've really enjoyed our time with Ty.
Follow up on that. In the event that you did end up with a Ty Simpson, how does that impact Shedeur, Sanders, and maybe even Dylan Gabriel?
I'd say I don't love dealing in hypotheticals. So, if that, I guess I'd say this: if we add a quarterback, we have a lot of love for the quarterbacks that are in the room. That's probably the first thing. So, that decision would be made independently of anything that we add to the room.
Andrew, when you go on the quarterback evaluation, you have a guy like Nussmeier where he had 1 year of full year of starting, and then that second year where you look to see add more context, he goes through that injury situation. How do you sort of balance that, and what kind of goes into kind of separating fact from fiction with the play?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's a little bit more art than science. Look, I don't think you can go in there blindly and say, hey, we're gonna treat this past season the same way that we would have thought of, the 2024 season. He was obviously hurt and it affected his performance. How you do that and how you weight it and how you come to your decisions, it may be different from building to building, but it's just something that you work through, you talk through, and you try and make the best call that you can.
Question, but does relate to this draft. You have this defense that's played at a high level consistently here for a couple of years, and obviously the offense, that's a work in progress as you look to retool that. How do you close that gap as quickly as possible? I know you said earlier this offseason, I think it was at the Combine, just because you're young doesn't mean you can't be a good football team. Yeah. So just how can you close the gap between having this defense that's really, really good and, giving Coach Munkin enough talent to where he can get the offense to kind of close the gap?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it starts with the internal development of the players that are here and on your roster. Secondly, it's adding competition and talent, where you can with the guys that you bring in. And then third, it's putting together an offense or a scheme that maximizes the players that you have on hand. Simple outline, it's certainly like more challenging to do. Like I don't mean to be, suggest that it's, you just snap your fingers and it happens, but that's really the blueprint.
You mentioned that, last year no one ever expected you guys to trade out. It seems like you have a good poker face like going into each one of these drafts.
Appreciate that. That's the kindest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Hey, you're welcome. How important is that? Is that kind of something you've had to learn over the process of this, and how fun is it for you to kind of go through that process of trying to keep other teams guessing?
I would like to sit here and say that, I have this, generated strategy to, I'll be honest, I usually just tell you guys the truth and you guys don't believe me. Terry, I see that face. No, I honestly, it's not necessarily about, there are some things I'm just not going to talk about publicly, obviously, because they impact strategy. But I really think the biggest thing is just being flexible to opportunities that can help the organization. And I think that when you're too dogmatic or sort of hey, we can only do this, that's when you don't, open yourselves up to okay, hey, here's an opportunity that we didn't anticipate was coming down the pike. But this is actually better than what our plan A was. Let's pivot to plan B. So I think many of those moments can actually happen in those type of circumstances.
On that, following up on that, do you have to lie to other teams on the phone?
Listen, I think if you lie, as a general manager to your peers and counterparty, you won't get business done. Yeah.
Combine, you credited the success of last year's draft to just having better resources, right? More picks, more higher picks. But was there anything else that changed? Did anything process-wise change that allowed you guys to have such an impactful draft last year?
It was pretty similar, honestly, Scott. Yeah.
Drew, you've talked a lot.
Let me go here, and then I'll go with. Okay, I'll go here, and then I'll go with you, Joe.
Tony?
Yep, you got it, Tony.
In your free agency on offensive line, you've stressed versatility. You think you're overemphasizing versatility?
I'd say that was a nice. I think that was a nice byproduct of getting good players, Tony, as opposed to going out and saying, "Hey, look, we're going to maximize versatility, and then talent will be next." They're really good football players, and the added bonus is the versatility.
Ohio State could have 4 players taken in the top 10, which any school hasn't done since I think '67. Just what's it like going through those 4 players, especially down to safeties in the top 10 are rare, and it seems like Styles really ascended after his combine.
And maybe clarify if I'm not answering your question. Coach Day's done a great job recruiting up there. I mean, not just with those 4 individuals, but they have some younger players that are coming down the pipeline that are pretty impressive. And I think the other part of it is all 4 of those individuals, they're great human beings. And so it's you can see why they've had so much success. But they've done a great job of recruiting, and they've done a great job of developing.
Just a follow-up with Reese, Downs, and Styles, how much did it help Patricia coming in with his NFL background and that NFL system with, what they did last year in games?
A lot with, whether it's like Hightower, I think it was probably Hightower and Collins, if memory serving me correctly, in New England, where he used these guys in these hybrid roles, which makes it really difficult, for the O-line and the offense to protect and identify these guys. And then, what they did for a number of years with their safeties in New England, I think those two guys out of everyone probably benefited the most because of Matt's philosophy. But all of them gained wisdom and improved their games just because, Matt, he's one of the best defensive minds in football, and so I think I was Mary Kay next. Now I'll hit you, Terry. Okay.
You've mentioned that one of your possibilities with number 6 is to trade it for a veteran, and so I'm just wondering, have you had many conversations about that, and then also how likely might it be to trade? I know you haven't wanted to trade away any of your veterans, but is that still the case, that you probably aren't going to trade away a big name, one of your veterans?
Yeah, so the first question in terms of, you have a bunch of trade discussions throughout the weekend, and everything like that, so I couldn't handicap anything as we sit here today. In terms of, our guys or what we would do, I'd say we'll do anything that can help the team or, move the roster forward, but I think that's much less likely.
Last one, Terry.
A lot of pressure. When you look at you have a good defense, and say there's a player like Downs, who I guess is the best safety. Is that fair to say or not?
He's among a very good safety class.
He's a safety, and there are 15 other guys. Yeah. But in terms of seriously, when you're looking at this positional value to where you're drafted, how does when you look at a guy like Downs, how does he there? First of all, what kind of player is he, and how does that fit into your philosophy?
He's an excellent player and an excellent kid. I think you've seen with us, and you've seen really across the league, that you're really transitioning from a league where you had either 4 defensive linemen and 3 off-the-ball linebackers, or really 5 down and 2 off-the-ball linebackers, to a 3-safety league where you have these safeties that are these hybrid, defenders. Kyle Hamilton's obviously the one that we see every year. You can look at what Nick Imamori did as a rookie, in Seattle for Mike McDonald, and those guys provide a lot of value because they're really these multi-position, or we think about positionless basketball. You're getting to this point where you have this positionless defensive philosophy in the NFL. So I think that position is certainly gaining value. That's something that we've deployed very often as well.
Can I ask you one more about Joel? Do you want an answer from him before the draft?
I'd say this, Jeff. Joel has been a foundational player for the organization. He's everything that we could have asked as a Brown. He needs to make the decision on his own timeline. Just simple as that. And he's earned that right. He will have that right. We'll be ready either way.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.